So I'm delighted to be joined by Roscommon footballer Diarmuid Murtagh. Diarmuid, I suppose, how's life keeping at the? We're just, unfortunately, from probably ourselves, any as Roscommon point of view, the championship's just finished. But away from football, is life treating you okay?
Yeah. Life's all good. I suppose you mentioned there about football. It's such a big part of our lives now that when things don't go well for you, it does impact your life and how you're feeling. So like life is all good for me. I'm happy out. But probably the last week has probably been the hardest week I've had as a footballer, I'd say. After obviously our defeat, it's no secret that we're all extremely disappointed about it. But look, life goes on. I'm a teacher. I teach kids. They don't care about that game. You just have to go on with life, and that's the beauty of it. Life goes on, and you have to move on with it, or you'll be left behind. But yeah, look, it's an extremely tough week. I'm not going to hide away from that, and but yeah, you're just trying to learn from it and move on, and what would you say, right the wrongs of what happened in the game the next time you go out, um, in those so many words.
Yeah, do you see that as a positive, the GA, or a negative? That I suppose it is amateur. Like you play the game on the Saturday or Sunday, you have to go to work then the week after. Is that a positive way to get away from it? As say professional aspects, if you had lost a game, you'd be nearly in training thinking about it. So it kind of, what
Mm.
way would you look at that?
I like it. I like it. I suppose if you lose, it shows that there's more to life and that not everyone in the country follows GA. There's not a lot. Some you could be playing there in a provincial final, and people would be asking you, "What did you do for your weekend?" When you go into the
Yeah,
staff room or
yeah.
whatever. So, look, it's not the be all and end all for everyone, but I suppose when you're into it so much, it is. And no, I like going into work after matches because it's kind of a breath of fresh air, and you kind of come back to normality a bit because you're on such a high from the game that it's nice to come back down and realize that there's other things to life, people getting married, all sort of things happening. So, I like that going into work. It gets you kind of out of the frame of mind of, say, the seriousness of, say, a GA environment. Don't get me wrong, I love that too, but it is
Yeah.
nice. It is nice going in after, like it's just, I suppose, after defeat, especially, it's very important to surround yourself with people,
Yeah.
especially when you find it hard after defeat. So I know I'd find that good now and helpful in that situation.
Yeah, we'll touch on obviously this year later on, but I suppose going back to the start of your footballing career, like, was it? I mean, for most people, it'd be five or six. Was it just? Would it happen for you straight away, that love for football?
Yeah, I suppose it's an old cliche. You'd probably be sick of hearing things from
Yeah,
interviewing people that, yeah, I was playing out in the garden with my brothers when I was 5 or 6, but it was no different for me. Yeah. Our dad would have been a big influence on us. Obviously, my two brothers play as well. So the fact we have the same interests, we would have always played. We did lots of other sports when we're growing up as well. Look, we would have been big into athletics. Not saying I was the quickest now off the mark, but we used to be into athletics, soccer, boxing, any sort of sport that we could do. We were into it, but GA was always number one. And I'm not just saying that because I was playing it now. It's because I chose to play it. I could have played other sports and done okay at them, but I was very happy to play GA. And it did start from a young age. Yeah. I used to start in the old field in St. Folia's, our club. So that's where it would have started for us. And yeah, it's kind of haven't looked back since, with the club. Anyway, we got a new pitch, new grounds, but yeah, I haven't looked back since then. It's mad, like, you still be playing with some of the same lads that you tagged out with when you were 6 or 7, kind of going to those underage blitz where everyone gets a medal. So yeah, no, it's great. Since about 5 or 6, yeah, as you said, no different to anyone else that's playing at the moment.
yeah. Is it important as well, them teenage years? Obviously, you probably will be in county development squads. That it is to be open minded to be able to play other sports as well, like GA. It's important to people, but maybe soccer might be on the horizon as well. And you're seeing nowadays there people at a young age are having to make a choice fairly early whether what
Mm.
sport to go down. Do you think it's important to keep them options open?
Absolutely. And look, whether I'm doing well or not at the moment, I find I've learned a lot from those sports, little snippets that I can take to other sports or to GAA. So, for example, say the professionalism of soccer. the intensity of something like boxing, your technique as an athlete if you're running. You know, there's so many things that you can take from other sports. Even the mindset of athletes from other sports I find very interesting. And you know, like even when you're listening to, say, those high performance podcasts, you listen to rugby players, athletes, it's very interesting. You can actually bring that to your own game. So I'd be one who would be a learner, try to learn all the time. So I think when you're playing those sports in your teenage years, it's very important to keep them going for as long as you can. I know there's obviously different circumstances for different people that they can keep them going with, whether it's this distance to travel, too much going on, or even mentally and physically, it can be tough to keep them sports all going. But I would always encourage anyone to play as much as they can, and then play what's for you and what you enjoy the most. And for me, it was GA. But yeah, I think at that age you can learn so much from other sports, and even other managers from other sports, and just their mindset and the commitment to it. And you can always take that and bring it to your own sport and what you're playing, and like it can only make you better, you know, because you might be bringing something to your own sport that no one else has brought before. So I'd always encourage people to play as much as they can at that young age. I don't see why not. But you know, it is, you're right though, it is gone to a stage now where you're 13 or 14 and you're being told, well, you have to choose between one or the other. But I wouldn't do that unless I really had to. You know, because usually if a manager is telling you to choose from one or the other, that means you're probably really needed on both teams. You know, you're probably good enough to be on both teams, so he's not really going to tell you not come back. But I suppose we saw that incident with Offaly under 14 team. I don't know if you saw that. So
I was
maybe
referring
I'm wrong.
to that. Basically, that was where I was coming from nearly.
So that was shocking, really. I don't really know the point behind that, to be honest, if I was to give my own opinion. But again, everyone's different. They're probably trying to set a precedent with Offaly football and make sure that this is the way forward. They're on a bit of a high now since they're under 20s. So they're obviously trying to set a tone for, well, this is what it means to play for Offaly footballers. So I can kind of see both sides of it. But I think at that age, it's a bit too serious. Maybe at minor, but not at 13 or 14, when young lads, all they want to do is play at the highest stage. I think they were in an All-Ireland soccer final. So like, you want to play at the highest stage in any sport you're playing at that time. So, you know, I couldn't blame the teenagers in that situation now.
Yeah, I suppose for county anyways, it's really when you start at minor that it becomes kind of more of a big deal. And you had a couple of good years at the minors, like even a trip to Croke Park against Tyrone in the semi-final. Like getting that exposure, you know, playing at Croke Park, playing before senior games, is that what's nearly missing as well nowadays, where the minor championship's gone to under 17, it's on a Friday night. Now it's good, it's getting still, you know, games are being streamed, but even just being on a big day before a senior match, getting a bigger crowd, that exposure, do you think that's nearly been missing at times now?
Yeah, I think it is. Like, looking back at it, actually, you mentioned that Tyrone game. I remember the feeling I'm having this week. I had a similar feeling the week after that game. I thought that was one we left. Actually, I think it went a similar way. We were 3 or 4 points up coming the last 10 minutes, and ended up losing the game. And the what would you say, the reward at the end of that game was playing Mayo in an All-Ireland final. Again, a team that had beaten us in the provincial final earlier that year. So we were very disappointed after that game. But yeah, I definitely think, I think all those grades, I don't think they should have ever changed. I think they should stay the same. Like the way that I think they changed under 17 back to for people doing the Leaving Cert, that they wouldn't be doing the Leaving Cert, but like the majority of people would be doing the Leaving Cert at under 17 anyways, you know, the way it's gone. So I don't see, it probably hasn't changed much with relation to clashing with exams. But yeah, like, you know, like the build up, I'm just trying to think back at the game. I think our game against Tyrone was like, it was 2013, it was before Kerry and Dublin, so the crowd was getting bigger in the second half, and the hill was filling up, and like it's unbelievable for a 17 or 18-year-old. I don't think it should have ever changed. I think it should go back. And it just, I find the seriousness of what, say, I was lucky. I had Gareth Carroll and Fergal O'Donnell as my minor managers, you know, and they kind of really set an example for us of what it means to play for Roscommon. And it's no coincidence, I suppose, you see a lot of those lads, whether we're doing well or not, still playing for Roscommon because it means so much to us. But they set a good example for us. And then the fact that you're playing in front of those big games, you're like thinking, imagine I was playing in the game after this, what it'd be like. If I'm buzzing with this, imagine what it's like playing in a provincial final or an All-Ireland semi-final. where you're actually the main game. So I would like for those young lads to experience that when they're coming up. And I really think it's a pity for, say, the under 20 age, that they're not under 21 and have the chance to, say, be playing with their senior team as well. I think that's it's a big miss there. Because I remember we used to really enjoy that when we were under 21 and been on the senior panel, you know. And I suppose it comes back to that point. If you lost a game with under 21s, you're saying, "Oh, I'll have the seniors next week, so I'll try better," and you have a chance to prove yourself again. So, but yeah, I like the way it was, say, when I was minor and under 21. And I don't think it should ever have changed. And I'm not saying it's not as important, but it's kind of taken away. You know, like it's taken away from those big games, like even the under 20 final there. Like, why is that not played in Croke Park? Like, that is madness for them young lads. Like, you know, no disrespect to Carrick and Shannon, it's a great pitch, I love playing there, but it's not like Croke Park is where you want to play all your big games, especially when you're like, that kind of used to be the thrill of trying to get to a final, is to play in Croke Park, or a semi-final at minor. Now that's kind of taken away from those lads. So yeah, I think it should go back to where it was, but no one's going to listen to me. You know, it's going to be kept the way it is, you know. But that's why I liked it, and I think it made younger lads really want to play in the senior games then as well, you know, and play for their counties at senior. So that'd be my opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, I lost them games even going into under 21. You had three probably really good years. Like it was like high scoring games. Remember the Cork's All-Ireland semi-final, I think the Connacht final the year after against Galway. Like, there was just maybe that freedom that you could go out and express yourself at underage. Obviously now there is more pressure at senior level and you have to be more tactically aware. But did you feel like that with under 21, even, you know, them couple of years, that it was almost like a shootout kind of?
Yeah, it actually was. Well, I don't know if they were meant to go like that, but that's the way they went anyways. But I suppose that probably came from lads at that age being so well conditioned, because like I think we played Galway, Mayo in some of them games, and I'd say 7 or 8 of the teams were in with their senior panel, so they were very well conditioned gym wise. You know, like it was hard to stop some of those lads if you weren't in a senior panel. But they probably were more open at that time. It's probably about that time, 2012, 2013, when Donegal came along, that it kind of came a bit more tactical. I'm not blaming them, they won All Ireland, they worked for them. But that was kind of the time where people kind of put on like, hey, if I'm an underdog here, I can set up and I can still win this game. I think that kind of went a bit like that for the years after that, and it worked for some teams. But I think it hasn't gone from it has gone from an open game to a bit more say shutting up shop a bit and then breaking that pace. Like, it's rare nowadays you will see any team without 12 behind the ball when the other team's attacking. Like, it's just the way it's gone. But that happens naturally too, because you have to, like, lads are going to speak about honesty in their work rate and stuff like that, where lads will get back and track their man if they're attacking. So you'll end up having forwards following defenders, and next thing you have 15 behind the ball, just from lads being a bit honest and trying to track their man. So I think that's just the way the game has evolved. And look, there'll be something else in 5 years' time to make the game evolve even more. So it'll be interesting to see how it does change from that. But I'm not sure will rule changes do anything for that. I think it can make, or I think to my rules can make the game worse as a spectacle. So be interesting though. Be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean, regarding the senior team, like, you came in pretty much as young as you can go. Was it 19 you came in, or just after minor? Like, you probably don't see that even nowadays. Even yourself, Enda, Donny, a few of you like came in quite young. Like, nowadays it even feels like under 20, if you just finish, you're quite young going into a senior panel. You came in just off the back of a minor. So is that again changing, even just easing younger lads in more so than it was maybe 7-8 years ago?
Yeah, I suppose it probably was easier for us at the time to be brought in, because Roscommon had just gone through such a wave, and they brought in the likes of Donny Shine, Conor Devaney, Cathal Craig, all these players, and they did so well in their transition. So they were doing so well at underage. So they probably saw like, okay, that has worked for us now. We're building a bit here. We'll just bring these lads in. But yeah, no, I came in after minor. I was on a development squad with John Evans. He was the manager in November, and then eventually brought into the squad in the new year. And yeah, you don't see that as often now. You don't see that as often. Like, I don't know why that is. I presume you're not allowed if you're on under 20 panels. And then you have some teams who want to win under 20 All Ireland, which, like, say, likes of Offaly there. Like, is it better for them to have 7 under 20s in their panel last year and people not knowing about them, or is it better to have
Yeah.
that bit of a like a bit of a, I don't know, what would you say, they're well known around the country now for winning that under 20 All Ireland, so there's a bit of expectation, which they probably prefer, you know, like to have that, okay, we're bringing in successful young lads here, so it's better to let them win at that underage if they have a good team, rather than say sacrificing that for just to have them in the panel for what amount of time would they've played ahead of senior players anyways. So, but yeah, it has changed a lot now. It has changed a lot. I think under 21 has something to do with that as well. You know, and not being allowed in and out when you're on those underage panels as well. So yeah, it is. It's an interesting one how it has changed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, going into the senior team, I mean, I think you played against Leitrim, but the Mayo game, you came off the bench and scored a couple of points. Is playing Mayo nearly, you know, was that a welcome to senior football, that this is the real stuff now? Like, did you even feel that straight away, the difference between underage football and senior football? Like, Mayo were a seasoned All Ireland, you know, final team at that stage. No, could you feel that difference straight away?
Oh, you would, yeah, you would. I was actually after minor, I played senior club championship, and we played Bridget's, who were the best club in the country at that time. So that was kind of my rude awakening. I think I was marking Dara Donnelly and Peter Damican in a league final and a championship game. I didn't touch the ball off the two of them, so that was kind of my rude awakening. But of course, then when you come into championship, again, like you're trying to do as much conditioning as you can, building up. But yeah, that was a really exciting game now in Roscommon. Probably one, if we beat them, it wouldn't have meant we were at the same level as Mayo at the time, but it would have been a great scalp to take. So as a young lad coming through, it would have been a great scalp. Like, I see ourselves a lot closer to Mayo now than I would have said back then. But I thought we actually had a really good opportunity to beat them that time. But yeah, it was a very exciting game to come on. And like, you're a young lad coming on there, you can do whatever you want and no one's going to care. You know, you can have a cut at it. And luckily, I scored a few points that day, but we're very unfortunate not to win. But we went on a little bit of a run. We beat Cav, and then we actually came up against a very good Armagh team that year, who just about lost Donegal, who ended up getting to the All-Ireland final to beat Dublin in the semi-final. So we didn't have a bad run. It was a good introduction. I think the key for us that year was getting promoted out of Division 3. I think there's a big difference between Division 3 and Division 2 football. And again, Division 2 and Division 1. So I think that was the key for us that year. But yeah, like, you're coming on against Mayo. I think I was marking Tom Kniff at the time, and he was an excellent defender, probably a bit underrated for Mayo at the time. So yeah, it's a different ball game now when you're a young lad playing against lads who are playing All Ireland finals, or who are in the condition to be in All Ireland finals each year. I think the year before they lost in the final, it was against, or it was the year before, 2 years before, or that year they got to it anyways. But they were brilliant at the time anyways, and they were making great progress. So it was a real stepping stone for me. And probably didn't get to see the real Mayo at the time, because the way that game went, we kind of frustrated them, and then it came on, the game opened up a bit. But definitely for that year and the years after, you kind of got to see how good them lads were. But yeah, no, it's real eye opener now, I have to say.
Yeah, the following year again, Division 2, you win, you go into the championship then, and suddenly there's probably, I mean, you had just been in, obviously, so you weren't in the panel maybe 4 or 5 years, but suddenly there was this expectation that you were probably going to go on and kick on under John Evans, and the Sligo game happened. It was a disappointing one. I think you bet Cavan, and then, you know, Fermanagh was a low point as well. Like, could you explain what happens that year, or was it just, you know, 2 bad performances on the day? Or
probably, yeah, it's a hard one. It's not one a year I'd look back to fondly now. Brilliant getting promoted to Division 1. We're probably a bit naive at the time, maybe looking ahead, preparing for a Connacht final. We played against London in London, and we beat them. We didn't play that great at all. I remember the feeling after the game. You're like, beat them there. I don't know if it's because of the party atmosphere that's in Ruislip when you're playing them games. But yeah, like, nothing went wrong. There was nothing wrong with management. They prepared us the best way they could. Just one of those games, maybe. Probably weren't expecting Sligo to be as good. You know, like, they'd obviously great players, but we were probably just a bit naive, thinking because we were Division 1 and they were Division 3 or 4 at the time, maybe that we have this onus on us to just go and beat them without. But we weren't complacent or anything, like, you know, to be nothing. Maybe I'd say naive more than complacent going into the game, because in a game of football, it's 15 against 15. Anyone could beat anyone. Then we kind of a few niggles going into that game. I know myself, I hurt my hamstring in that game. The first time I got a hamstring was the week before, so I didn't know how serious it was. But obviously now, if it happened to me, I'd be able to say, well, look, I can't play this game, someone else plays. And there's a few of us kind of like that. And I remember that day as well, I think Connor Daly or someone was in great form for us, and he got food poisoning that morning. So he had loads of little things that kind of affected that game against Sligo. And I think that kind of knocked the confidence then for the rest of the year. Who do we play after that then? We played
Cavan, I think, was it?
I played Cavan up in Cavan. That was actually quite a good win, because like I do think Cavan are better than people actually give them credit for at times. And then we played Fermanagh then, which is a big letdown. And and I suppose the annoying thing about those games, and even like with this year, the perception after them is a lot worse than what it should have been. As in, in a lot of those games, you're 5 or 6 points up, and we've let some of those leads slip. If you win them games by 7 or 8 points, the narrative is totally different. So that's kind of the most disappointing part of those games. But that ended disappointingly. Now I have to say, there's not really much you can say about the money, that they were hard to take at the time, and you still look back at them and think like, that wasn't a nice place to be the week after that game either. Now,
like the following year, Fergal O'Donnell, Kevin McStay came in, and the league was great for the most part, even though you probably ended it poorly with a few poor results, especially the Kerry game. New York happened, and I think where the wheels kind of nearly coming off for New York, that you'd maybe just been that tad bit ahead of everyone regarding maybe training, and you had a long sort of row with the New York game. Even that was that helped, I suppose, the ride ahead.
Yeah, I suppose from my own opinion, I felt like we never got that gap between league and championship. I think we went to New York 2 or 3 weeks after that Kerry game. Like, I know if you look at Armagh this year, like, I know for a fact that they had more work than anyone else done the league, just from word of mouth, and you can see they were flying it, especially at the start of the league, and kind of struggled towards the end of it. But they got their gap between kind of league and championship. I think they did anyways, but whether they were getting a small bit worse or they were tapering off to go hard then for the championship, it has actually worked well for them. Whereas never felt we got that kind of a gap between the league and championship. Kind of like your level, your mindset, everything changes. Training's up, the intensity is way bigger, the pitches are getting harder. I felt at that time we never got that. There was still no excuses. Like, our team was a lot more experienced in New York. I'm not going to sit here and say that was a great New York team. Like, they haven't won any games, and they're a thrown together team every year. They have different players, so I wouldn't make any excuses for that. And then we beat Leitrim quite comfortably in Carrick, beat Sligo, struggle in the first half, and then beat them in the end. And then again, like, as I say about the narrative, when you lose games, we drew with Galway and Salt Hill. We beat Galway that year, you win a provincial medal. Everyone's speaking about how that management team are going to bring us forward next year, because it kind of, when you win, that's the way it is. Like a kick of a ball there. If we win that, we don't get hammered in the replay against Galway. We're playing an All-Ireland quarter final that year, would have been against Tipperary in Croke Park, would have fancied their chances. Next thing, that year can go from a provincial medal and All-Ireland semi-final easily to losing to Clare that year actually as well. So there's just small little things that can make a huge difference. And I suppose that's why us as players keep at it. We know that someday we'll get that breakthrough that we need, if we stick at it and keep learning. But 2016 was like, the New York game was disappointing. It was like, it's only when you lose at the end of the year you look back and say, maybe that was the game that kind of was ultimately our downfall. When it comes to the end of the year, was the other wins papering over cracks. Like, it's hard to know.
Yeah, I even said it to Enda last year. It's nearly probably Roscommon probably have the greatest example of it. Like, we do quite well in the league, and then maybe poor in the championship, or vice versa. Like, if you have a good league but a poor championship, it's looked back on as a bad year, really. Like, you remember how you exited the championship, whereas the following year in 2017, like, I think with Cavan on the last day, losing all the games before that, you win Connacht, you draw at Mayo, and it's perceived as a very good year. So it's that missing.
Yeah, that's very true. And again, I go back to that, like Kevin Kevin McStay, he was a great manager for us, a great time for him. And he openly said it to us about the league that we're not going to do our hard trainings. We had like 10 weeks of a gap back then from league to championship, and we're playing Leitrim in the Connacht semi-final. So we were going to put all our eggs into that basket against Leitrim. And we did the same the following year really as well. We struggled in Division 2, but we ended up getting out of it. You know, I think we drew our first game, or won our second game and lost our third game against Meath, Tipperary at Down. So like we were putting a lot of focus on the championship, but we were lucky at them stages because we were already into provincial semi-finals. We had a longer gap between league and championship. And that's what I was saying to you there earlier on about the change in training between those, and can make it a lot easier because you kind of reset, refresh, and then go hard at it again. And next thing you're on top of the ground come championship. But yeah, of course you want to be finishing the championship a lot stronger than say in the league. You know, like I suppose the ideal thing is staying up in Division 1, and then you can really focus on championship. But I suppose for us, if we didn't get up to Division 1 this year, would have been very disappointing. You know, like your mindset going into the 2023 season is totally different. Like you'd always have a good attitude, but it's just nice to be knowing you're going to be at centre stage, and it's huge again for Roscommon football to make sure we stay up there. So then there's a refocus on the year again, even after the disappointment of last week.
Yeah, I mean, it was 2017, obviously. Well, Kevin went solo that year. Was there kind of a siege mentality created within the camp that year as well? Because I said the league was going really poor. I'm sure you probably know the gay shearing comments on Shadden side. You know, it's sort of at the management and a few players. Like, was that sort of mentality created that, you know, people had given up on the team, if you like, even going into that kind of final? There was nothing expected, but it felt, even watching that, you know, the AIB documentary, that she had this was the game that she had targeted for 6-7 months.
Yeah. There's no other way of saying it. We targeted winning that kind of title, but I think we had lots of belief. I suppose siege mentality, I wouldn't really say that against the whole county or people comments or anything like that. It'd be more so for ourselves personally. Like maybe we were that was our fourth year in, a lot of us then. Some lads even fifth who were say on some of those successful teams. Next thing people are starting, like you're not concerned too much about the outside is saying, but in your own head, you're kind of thinking, okay, like I haven't done much here now, and I'm 5 years in, like, you know, or 4 years in, like I need to prove a point here. So you definitely want to prove something to yourself and the players around you as well, that you're good enough to compete at this level and win at this level, which is the most important thing. So yeah, it was something we did target. It was winning that kind of final, and I'm glad we did. And we played well that year, I have to say. Again, very unlucky not to be in the All-Ireland semi-final, kick of a ball against Mayo in the quarter-final. I know the replay was a write-off then, but it can be a totally different mentality going into the following year if you're in an All-Ireland semi-final. And then so it was a good year. It was a good year, very enjoyable. But I said we got that drive from the league into the championship. Great experience playing Division 1. Lost 6 out of 7 games in Division 1, but some of them games are actually quite closer than people think. But when you're bottom of the table, no one cares. You know, you've lost, and that's it. You know, it's all about winning. You know.
Yeah, winning that kind of final, I'd say you won by 9 points in Salt Hill. You would have been on the other side, say in 2010, watching as probably a fan against Sligo, and you know, seeing what it means, like being on the other side, being on the pitch. You know, it probably was an incredible feeling. As you said, you've been targeting that. That's what you've wanted, you know, probably, you know, all your Roscommon career anyways, was that kind of title that, you know, a lot of players had, but we hadn't won it for about 7 years at the time.
Yeah, it was unbelievable at the time, you know, because it was such a thing that hadn't been common in Roscommon, was winning that kind of title. And it was an unreal feeling. I was there in 2010 in Sligo, going out onto the field, looking up at all these lads, and only a few years later, you're talking out with them on the pitch. You know, I don't know what age, that 2010, what age would have been then, maybe 15 or so, playing with Roscommon or 16s. The next thing, 3 years later, you're training with Donny Shine, who's the hero of that day. But yeah, no, it was unbelievable. Like, you know, and when you're 15, thinking about playing senior football seems like a long way away. but it's actually only a couple of years, like for me, the way it happened anyways. But no, it was unbelievable to win it. Like, you kind of, I suppose you knew the reaction from 2010, the celebrations, how much it meant, the homecoming and stuff. And you knew that's going through your head after you win the game. You're not thinking of that before the game, but after the game, you're thinking, geez, this is unbelievable for the county of Roscommon. So it's a lovely thing. It's definitely a day I'll never forget anyways. That when that final whistle went. It looks more comfortable on the score sheet than it actually is when you're there. 9 points, you'd wish it was 18. When it's 18 points, you wish it was 36 points. It never feels like you're going to get over the line. But I suppose you mentioned provincial finals there and about the importance of them. I think it's important now that there will always be important to Roscommon, but it's very important that we move beyond that as the biggest game in a calendar year. If you want to make the breakthrough, you have to look beyond there as well. Because if you give up after losing a Connacht final or winning a Connacht final, you're not really going to get to the latter stages of the championship, where ultimately that's where everyone wants to get. That's why you're playing. So I think it's important that it's something that we're working on. And I know a lot of players speak like that too, that if you win a Connacht final, it's great to look back on. If you lose, it's disappointing, but there has to be a goal further than that too as well. So that'll be something we'll be trying to work on as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Mayo game followed. I mean, I think it was 65,000 people at it. There was probably 50,000 at least from Mayo, and Roscommon nearly at it. Like, was that even a wow factor? Like, you're in Croke Park, like that was probably them two games were like the real proper championship games that you've played in Croke Park. We probably haven't had too many like it. I definitely it's my time following them, but was that you're playing a Croke Park in a proper championship game against Mayo as well? Like, it's we're probably the team we want to beat the most as well.
Yeah, true. And I suppose any game you're playing, you want to win. But the fact that I think there was more so the fact you knew the crowd Mayo would bring, that's what made it very exciting. And Roscommon playing Mayo. I remember the ball being thrown up that day. It was lashing rain, but got the shivers down the spine with the roar of the crowd. Like, it was unbelievable. Like, it was. And then the start, we got a good start. So it was special that day. It was an awful pity we just didn't come out on the right side of that result. But again, another game I won't forget in a hurry. Like you said, like when you're young or even when you're whatever age you are, you want to be playing in Croke Park in a quarter, semi or final in front of, say, 60,000+. Like, that's really what you want to be doing. And as you said, they're the proper championship games, and that's every footballer's goal, is to be playing there and winning there. I think that's more important as well. You can be up there every year, but if you're not winning, it's not the same. You need to be winning those games in front of a big crowd and soaking in the atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a high point because you drew the game, but it kind of gave you a taste of what it's like. But I suppose Croke Park, on the other hand, can be a cruel place as well. I mean, you've taken some bad losses there. I think, the likes of Mayo, Tyrone, Dublin. Like, do you need to experience them bad days as well to nearly make you want to come back and right or wrong, if that's a way of putting it?
Absolutely not. No, you don't need to experience them at all. You need to keep winning, and you'll come back for more then as well. But no, they're terrible experiences, to be honest. It's a very lonely place, very lonely. I suppose you kind of know when you get a bit of, when you're, say, around and you're on social media, you know what comes with a defeat like that. Like, you know what's going to be said, you know what the week ahead is going to entail, you know you're going to be down for the week. And they're probably the hardest things about GA when you take beatings like that. And look, at times you've nothing but yourselves to blame. I suppose like that, you always want to come back and prove a point, and prove that you're good enough. I think that's the main one. It's nearly a pride thing with lads. You want to be successful for Roscommon as well. Like, it's just disappointing when you're losing those games. You want your county up the top table. Like, you want, say, there's people of Roscommon going to Croke Park, say, coming out with their chests out, shoulders out, heads up, knowing that they're after winning the big championship game. Like, that's what it's all about. Like, you do it for yourself, but there's that pride within Roscommon as well. You want to do it for, and when you take a defeat like that, it just it takes the life out of you, and it takes life out of supporters, and they're disappointed, and it's natural enough. But no, you want to be winning as many of those games as you can. Losing them, Now, do you learn from it? You have to learn from it, because if you don't, it'll continue to happen. And as I said, they're the type of things that we're always trying to take on board to ensure that doesn't happen. And we would feel, although maybe some of our years haven't been as good as we would have liked in previous years, that's just kind of ambitions we have. Yeah, you would like to be winning those games and not losing, but you have to learn from them if they happen. And we would like to think that we're in a better situation for them games not to happen. If we're getting knocked out of the championship, we will be expecting that they're going to be tighter games than what we've experienced before. We think we have the bit more experience to not let that happen to us, from previous years, anyways.
Yeah, is it important to play in Division 1? Because even here, like, people say, or we're maybe as well off stay in Division 2 for a year, not go up and go back down. But if you look at the 2 years Roscommon won Connacht titles, it was playing Division 1. We got relegated in both, but you're playing that top tier opposition. It can only bring you on. You saw that in 2019 with the wins over Mayo and Galway, and again going into next year, you're playing the top teams, so it can only bring you on further.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You need to be playing Division 1. Like, we make no secret about that either. Like, we don't want to be playing Division 2. When you're in it, you have to try and get promoted. It's simple as that. But we don't want to be playing Division 2. We want to be playing Division 1. They are the games you learn. As I said, if you're playing at this time of the year, they're the teams you're going to be playing. So the more times you play those teams, the more times you beat them, the more confidence you'll get when you have to play them again. Like, even when you're not playing league football and you're preparing for championship, it's those Division 1 teams you want to play in challenges when you're building up to the championship. So, like, you can't replace playing Division 1 football. And it's very enjoyable games week on week, and looking at the table, see where you are in the table. Can you make a league final? Are you in relegation? It's a great competition, the league. But like, the experience of it is very good. I think you need to be playing it. Yeah, I think you just learn, everything's at a sharper pace. And like, people will say teams haven't got this work done or this training done, they're on team holidays and stuff, but it's still better than any other division. Even half the teams are better than, say, what you might be playing in Division 2. And Division 2 teams will tell you that as well. Like, it's no disrespect to any of us playing Division 2. It's very important, yeah, for progress as well. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, 2019, like, it was a mixture, because you came back from, was it an eye injury you got the previous year, so you were kind of eased back into the squad. Like, how was that year? It was probably a different feel to the year. Like, it ended on a high with the kind of title, but the start of the year was maybe a bit of uncertainty.
Yeah, it was. So the eye injury, a detached retina, it was August, I think, of 2018, and I ended up getting an operation in August of 2018 on the eye. And I was told I couldn't do anything for 6 months, basically. So the first 8 to 10 weeks, I couldn't put pressure on my head. So, like, doing gym work or jogging or anything that made the blood go to my eye, or the pressure on my eye, I couldn't do that. And I couldn't get it infected. So I had an eye patch on it. And then after that, then you're kind of like easing back in. After that, then you can't do maybe another 3 months of anything to do with contact. Yeah. So I kind of was then kind of easing back into the gym and doing a bit of exercise. And it was hard not training flat out as what you're used to. It's probably the longest break I've had. And you do lose a bit of fitness work that you've gained over the years. Now you get it back quick enough, but I came back in February, I think the end of February, into the panel, and you're very nervy now when you're going into contact, and say every bit of contact you get, then you're closing one eye to check, see if the vision is blurry, and this one again, like, you're just worried about the same thing that's happened before. So that was very uncomfortable for about 2 or 3 months. And then I ended up coming on the last league game against Kerry that we were relegated anyways, and it was nice to come back on. But from then on, I had a clear vision on what I wanted to do. That we were playing Mayo in the first round of the championship. Or was it Mayo? Yeah, it was Mayo. No, sorry, played Leitrim in the Hyde. So it was all about trying to get my position back for that. Then obviously winning the Connacht final was emotional enough now, because you don't think you're going to be in that situation. Like, you're considering, should I be playing at all this year and just give it the year? But no, thankfully I did, and we got the Connacht final out of it. And then the Super 8s that year, we beat Cork, lost to Tyrone and Dublin. Probably Tyrone game probably felt like we left a bit behind us in that game in the Hyde. I think it was 8-7 just after half time. So, it would have been a big game to kick on in. But I suppose at least we learned from the year before where they hammered us in Croke Park. That's what I was saying to you earlier, that we feel like we're able to not take. I know the following week against Dublin, it was different kettle of fish in Croke Park, but I suppose you'd have to look at that Dublin team as different to any other team you're going to be playing. But it was like we learned from that experience against Tyrone. But it was disappointing because, after you lose to Tyrone the first game and you've Dublin in the second game, it's going to be huge for a team who hasn't lost in about 5 years. Like, are we going to be the team to beat them in order to keep our Super 8s going? Obviously, you believe you can, but it's going to be an uphill task. And then you lose that, you're gone out of the championship. I know it's nice to beat Cork, but at the end of the day, you're knocked out after that Dublin game, and it's very disappointing again. But no, it was a big learning year. I think it was a year that gave us a lot of confidence, I have to say. And obviously that was Anthony's first year in as well, so it was good. It was a good start to his management career with us, and a lot of the players on the panel as well. It was great to get that Connacht title again and be a small bit more competitive than outside of Connacht.
Yeah, because that year you probably ticked off a few things. I mean, basically the Mayo hoodoo, especially in Castlebar, like, that felt like even felt like a Connacht title in itself that night. I think the celebrations on the field after is like, that was a massive thing. The Tyrone game obviously played the year before, and even as I said there, I know the Cork game meant nothing, but it was a Super 8 win. I suppose it was the 6th attempt at trying to get a win. So it was probably a bigger deal maybe within the county than it was outside, that was just looked on as a dead rubber, effectively.
Absolutely. And you say about the Cork game, it was a big win for us, because we were kind of thinking of the narrative. Played 6 games. You could say in that Super 8, you could nearly say 6 quarterfinals, and you haven't won one of them. So I know beating Cork didn't get us anywhere, but to not be the laughing stock of the team that hasn't won a game in the Super 8s, because everyone's doubting why you're there then. So that was definitely big within the squad to win that game and to finish off the year, and it kind of sets you up for next year then, and after that, when you win that game, everyone's looking forward to the year after when you win a game like that. It's very unusual to go out and a win in championship, so it's a funny one.
Yeah, because like probably COVID it probably hampered a lot of teams. Like, I think Division 2 the following year, just when COVID was, I think the Kildare win away, and maybe it was Westmeath the home bet, and then COVID happened. Like, it probably did some good things for some teams and some bad things for others. Like, how was that 5-6 month break? I know the club season was back in action in June or July, but from a county perspective, how was that?
Yeah, so for me, actually, in that 2020, being very honest, I stepped away from the panel for the league. Probably a lot of that was to do with the previous eye injury, not because I was worried about what happened to the eye. I suppose I just wanted a break from it. I put so much pressure on myself getting back that year that I just felt like at that time I wasn't enjoying it then. I kind of got really fed up with football and I wasn't really enjoying it by the end of 2019. I think it was just the whole year, everything got to me and built up. And I was like, I just want to be away from it for a while. Then, of course, after about a few months, you miss it like mad. Then you realize, what am I at here not playing? And that's what happened to me. I suppose there was a rumors going around that I was going to America and traveling just because Kieran went the year before, but it was nothing to do with that. I literally just wanted a break from it, because it was just kind of all got on top of me with the pressure of it and stuff. And I was just like, I'm not really enjoying this now. I just need a break. And see, it shouldn't be the case. You should thrive in the pressure of it, which I usually do. But I took a break. But I actually came in then after we had the club season, and then I was delighted to come back in. Then was really excited to get back in. That was a very short season though, so I just missed a few league games, and I was back in for the last two league games. So I didn't actually miss much, and I'm delighted for the lads. They gave me an opportunity to play Division 1 the year after because they did very well in that Division 2 league. And then we beat Armagh and Cavan then the last 2 games to get promoted during the real kind of the heart of COVID, you could say, at the times then. And then we just had Galway in the championship, Mayo in the championship in the Hyde in a once-off game, and there's no backdoor. So it was a funny year, but that was 2019. 2020. 2021 was kind of similar enough with regards. We just had the league, league relegation, and then lost to Galway. Again, disappointing. But say you could say that those 5 teams we played that year are top teams. Anytime you play Galway or Mayo, there's a chance. I know it looks bad that we haven't beaten Galway or Mayo, but they're top teams as well. We have to remember that. We go out expecting to beat them, but there's a chance that you could lose to them because they're trying to do the same to you. It's like if you're working on something in training, for example, if you're working on kickouts in training, other teams are trying to work on how to stop your kickouts, or so like some things might just go right in the day, and some things might just go right for the other team in the day. And unfortunately, in both those games, we were beaten, we're beaten quite not I wouldn't say comfortably, but the other teams are pulling up at the end, unfortunately. Yeah. But that is going to happen over the years when you're playing Galway and Mayo. They're good teams. You will beat them, they'll beat you. That's the way. Like, I don't think you'll ever have a situation like you used to have with Mayo where they're winning 5 in a row Connacht titles. I don't think it'd be like that, because I think Roscommon and Galway have bridged that gap. So like it will happen from years to year. You're just hoping it doesn't happen too often. And obviously, who decides whether it happens or not is us when we're playing on the field. So that'd be the aim. And obviously this year was disappointing to lose the kind of final as well.
Yeah, I mean, was there emphasis put on this year to be slightly more attacking? Because you probably would have seen the year before the narrative was that you were ultra defensive, that there was no real style of attacking play. Was that more so that you were just playing, I suppose, the Division 1, and then you had the Galway games, you're playing only Division 1 teams, that had to be the way to play? Or, was there any sort of style change this year put in place?
I suppose you're always trying to adapt the way you play, and like you'd like to think you can play in all sorts of styles and adapt to how the other team is playing. I suppose what probably forced us to be more attacking this year was how defensive some of them Division 2 teams were. So we always had to keep as many men forward as possible in order to get scores. I wouldn't say, I suppose maybe it can be down to our conditioning levels as well, that we're able to get up and down the field. Maybe they're a bit better this year. That's why we're probably in more attacking positions more often. I do think, say, the previous year we got slated against Galway in the Hyde. I think the weather had a lot to do with that, and the conditions were brutal. There was puddles on the field, and again, it came down to that thing. We looked like we were defensive because lads were tracking their men. Take for example Sean Kelly there from Galway. Like, if I'm a full forward, like if you let him run up the field on his own and no one's running after him, he's going to score 1, 2 or 3 a game. That's how good he is. So I think it comes back to the honesty, the work rate, and tracking back, and that can lead to teams looking more defensive than they are. And then if you lose, it looks 10 times worse as well. If you happen to have men behind the ball, it's the be all and end all if you're defensive and you lose a game. People will slate you from pillar to post.
Yeah, I mean, this year as well, you came in a bit late. We'll touch on Folias in a while, but was it different? I suppose you had to be patient to get chances this year, that it was probably a settled team. You were coming back in late after the club season, but even the high of Croke Park as well, that you were still getting opportunities, and you did eventually start the Clare game in the end. So how would you look back on a personal note of this year?
Yeah, it was quite difficult. I wouldn't be the one to throw the toys out of the pram now and be giving out and saying I should have been playing or whatever. Like, the lads who were ahead of me were playing well. Like, they were flying in the league. They had 2 great wins under their belt. And like, going into that Galway in the Connacht final, that team hadn't lost a game. So like, you're wondering like, who can they take out if you want to be playing? And they couldn't. Like, there was no one standing out for maybe not doing their job or not doing what they're asked to do. So it was very hard to change it. So it was difficult coming back in, because I suppose at that time of the year when I was preparing for championship games with my club, you're training to play the games. So like, you're winding down going into the games. Whereas I'm so used to, say, having a harder pre-season and you're building up for the league, and then your fitness is improving all the time. It was a very weird experience, but it was really nice not having a break from football. I know that sounds funny, but I'm kind of gone. I have the attitude now where I try to take as less as breaks as I can, because you don't want to lose what you have. Like, you can control yourself with the training you do, say, in the off season, but I think it's very important the way it's gone now to keep yourself in shape, that you're not losing anything that you've gained over the years. So I suppose it was nice actually coming back in. Like we were coming back in the middle of the league and we're preparing for more games, like, you know, so you want to be playing as much as you can and training as much as you can with games around the corner. So I actually found it was a nice change. It was a nice change. And it's mad, like you find yourself sharpening up a lot more, say from when January you're with the club. As I said, your fitness is improving all the time, playing at a higher level again when you're playing Division 2 league in comparison to, say, the intermediate club championship. You know, so it was a great experience. Now I really enjoyed it coming back in. I wouldn't say, some people might say you played a lot of football this year, but you want more. Like you don't get sick of it. You don't get sick of it that easy. Obviously, 2019 was an exception for me, or 2020, but when you're enjoying it and feeling good, like you don't want to stop. You're definitely not.
Yeah, I mean the last two games, obviously the Connacht final and the Clare game, there was perception that there was just the team was a bit flat. Would you go along with that in certain patches of the game? Like what? I know it's a simple but hard question to answer. Like what went wrong basically in both them games that led to you losing them?
Yeah, I suppose when you look back on it, it looks like you're flat. I know, and when you lose, the other team looks like they're a lot fitter than you and a lot flat. It's only when you look back, but at the time you feel like you're in a great position to win this game. You know, like it's just little things can go your way, and little things maybe that we haven't done some of the things that we might have wanted to done to the best of our ability in those games, might have affected the outcome of the game. But what went wrong? It's very hard to put the finger on it. The Connacht final, I suppose, we probably left ourselves a small bit exposed at times. I suppose, like, it's no secret that they scored well. I know we scored as well, but we did leave ourselves a bit exposed. And then, like, you just have sometimes the brilliance of Shane Walsh and someone like that who's exceptional, like, you know, and he'll do damage if he's left in that amount of space. But yeah, it is very hard to put your finger on it, and we had a quick enough turnaround to the qualifier as well. You'd actually have more time if you won. So you're trying to move on and focus on the next game rather than say what you might have not done in the previous game, because you're playing a new opposition. You know, Galway and Clare, two totally different teams. I suppose against Clare then, probably one area we probably wouldn't have been too happy. Obviously, we haven't analysed it yet, and only from a quick glance back myself, you're probably a bit disappointed to maybe not have put more aggression on the Clare kickouts, and they were getting them off. And the way teams are gone now, they're very good with the ball in their hand. It's very hard to take the ball off teams. They're gone so good, and they're gone very athletic, and they know not to lose the ball. So it's probably maybe weren't aggressive enough on their own kickouts, and maybe should have taken a bit more risk on that to stop them getting primary possession. But obviously that's something we're going to have to look at them two games a lot over the winter to see how do we get to the next level in doing that. Like, why are we losing those games? And then again, I say we did that a lot better in the second half with the kickouts, and it did very well for us. We got a lot of scores from the Clare kickouts. So it's obviously something that we'll have to work on. I wonder why that didn't happen in the first half. And, you know, there's loads to be working on all the time, but we just have to analyse it. And I suppose the Galway game, again, I go back to it, probably just felt like in that game we just didn't perform. But then when you lose the Clare game, it looks worse, because it looks like, okay, that has led on to that. But I think with the Galway game, we just didn't perform that day. We were very confident going into it, felt in great shape, and really confident in winning that game, and just things didn't go our way at all. Then maybe unnecessary mistakes in both games as well that we wouldn't usually make. And these things can happen, and then you end up losing it, and the narrative again looks a lot worse. You know, then you go back to it's a tough week then again after. But yeah, no, they're games that we will look back on with obviously a good bit of regret. But I suppose in that kind of final goal, we were just better on the day. Maybe they were better in the 70 or so minutes. With the Clare game, obviously we know it's unacceptable to be 5 points up and lose a game, especially with the experience we would have had on the field. It's kind of one of those just freakish 5 or 10 minutes that we would have been very disappointed with. As I said, if we were playing Derry or Kerry or Dublin at the weekend All Ireland quarter final after beating Clare by 6 or 7 points, the the narrative of our year looks so much different.
Yeah.
But see, they're the small little things that make a huge difference. But for us, we need to be on the right side of those rather than say maybe being on the wrong side too often. And it's something we're going to work on. Like, the lads have a great attitude, all the players, and they're willing to do whatever they can for Roscommon to make sure we're dining at the top table at the end of the year. And I've no doubt next year will be no different with the attitude, especially the younger lads coming through as well. I'm not going to mention their names because there's 9 or 10 of them and leave some of them out, but they brought such a freshness to it. And they're brilliant, and this year will bring them on, and they'll learn from that experience at the weekend. Because it's a quiet, lonely place, Croke Park. When you lose a game, especially a game you're expected to win and your favourites to win, and that's not disrespect to Clare because they've improved, and I wouldn't be one bit surprised to see them giving Derry lots of it at the weekend. But it was very disappointing. But if I was to answer your question, probably didn't perform the Connacht final. Maybe aggression on maybe stopping primary possession for Clare might have maybe put them under a bit more pressure, like what we did in the second half in that game. Might have made a huge difference. Even though we put ourselves into a winning position, if we were in that position at half time, it could have been a different, maybe a comfortable second half for us. But that'd be my opinion. Just from quick glance back it up, there's probably 100 more things that I haven't seen yet that we will be looking into anyways.
Yeah, because I think you were taken off just before sort of Clare got going. Like, was it even hard looking from the stand that you couldn't even affect the game? Basically, it was out of your control, and seeing Clare knock them scores on, and then the final whistle was blown. I mean, from being there, I could even see just the disappointment probably from everyone involved with Roscommon. Like, would you say that's the lowest point? Even just walking down the tunnel back into the dressing room, like I say, it was a quiet place.
Yeah, very, very hard. It's very hard. Like, you're lost for words. It's a very quiet dressing room now. And after a game, everyone's kind of in a bit of shock, especially when you're in that position. Sometimes when you're beaten, so like in the Connacht final, we were very disappointed after it. But could you say we deserve to win it? Definitely not. Galway were the better team. It's simple as that. As I said, you'll have days like that in your football career. But against Clare, I wouldn't say they were fantastic on the day. Maybe them beating us might paper over some of the cracks that we exposed in the second half. But it was very disappointing. Now coming to be 5 points up, and you're watching it, and then when you see once they score the penalty there and they're a point down, they've all the momentum, and they see this as a massive opportunity, and then we just didn't finish the game out, which is very unlike us. Like we're. I would have been disappointed we didn't finish it out. And I'm not just saying, geez, I was taken off, I would have done this or that. It's very different when you're on the field playing, but it's very hard watching the sideline because you can see where the game is going once they get that penalty. You can see, okay, this is written for them now to cause an upset here by, just that momentum was huge for them at the time, and they made use of it. And it was very disappointing after the game. As I said, it's been probably the longest week and a half I'd say I've ever had after a game. It's just you think so much about it, and people probably don't realize that say the team themselves would be their biggest critics. We criticize ourselves so much personally, and it's very hard. You beat yourself up about it a lot. Just a very tough week and a half, definitely. And you'd be mad to get back at it again now. You're mad to prove a point again next year. But it was difficult to take, I have to say.
Yeah, because I mentioned at the start about even just getting away from work. Like, would you be one even after even a loss, like to just switch off from, say, Twitter, Sunday games, podcasts, anything, or would you listen in, or are you that type of person to, especially after a loss like that, it's probably even hard to even think about it really.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the type that now would delete social media or stuff like that. I kind of nearly go on and take it on the chin, I'm kind of like, I deserve this, whatever. But obviously no one does deserve that, because you're not playing an amateur sport to be criticized, or like nobody knows how anyone is doing with mental health when they're writing things online. But no, I wouldn't be one to delete it. Like I'd take it, I'd watch things back, I take the criticism. I know what the criticism is going to be before it comes out anyways. You're used to hearing the some things, like, so you'd take it on the chin, and you kind of you'd wrap it up and take it as motivation going into next year. That's what you do. But no, it's never nice to be online. And I have been online, and you would see nasty comments about people. Like, you'd wonder, are they thinking of the mental health of some lads after games? As I said to you, there, it was probably one of the toughest weeks of my career. You know, the last thing you need is not saying anyone did, but anyone on saying naming players or calling out the team and stuff. Like, you'd wonder what the benefit of that is. I suppose a wise man once told me before, just imagine them in a pair of shorts on around Croke Park, and that's how you get over it when you see people criticizing you. But no, it's definitely uncalled for. You know, but like, the players are as disappointed as anyone. Like, we know we let ourselves down and the supporters down and everything. Like, there's no getting away from that. But I don't think you need to voice your opinion on social media. I don't think it's the right way to go about things. If you have something to say about a player, ring him and tell him. I'd happily give anyone my number if they want to ring me and tell me what to do better, because I think it's a nicer way to go about things than putting up something on social media. I just don't see what's the end goal of that. Or say for example, if you're sitting there typing something about a player, like, what actual benefit are you getting out of it? Like, probably half the people reading it are probably going to give out about you for doing it. You know, so I don't see why people do it. I just don't see the point. But no, to answer your question, I wouldn't be one to hide away from social media. No, I'd go on it as normal. Maybe I mightn't be going on to Twitter search for Roscommon GA now or anything like that, but no, I wouldn't be deleting everything for the week. No, I think you just have to get on with it and get on with life after. But it is very difficult, though. It is very difficult. You'd be very down about it. There's no two ways about it, definitely. Yeah, but if you weren't go on, sorry.
No, do you want to finish here?
I was just saying that if you weren't disappointed about it, maybe it's not for you then, you know, football. You know, like, you have to be disappointed if you're into it that much and you care about it that much.
Yeah, I mean, looking ahead to next year, like, from listening to you, you seem like you're not have no intention of, you know, stepping away from county panels anytime soon, or you want to enjoy your football, basically, because it is like it seems like a long career, but it's a short career at the same time, especially even at the county level.
It is, and it goes very quick. Like, even Anthony is actually one I quote for saying that, like, you know, to take every opportunity you get, because it does go quickly. You know, he often says that he'd like to be playing himself again, and, you know, your intercounty career flies by at the blink of an eye, and you'll have nothing but regrets if you don't want to take the opportunity. But no, personally myself, I'll have no interest in stepping away. I'm 27 now, so I kind of feel like I'm going to be coming into my prime. Having a lot less injuries than I would have had earlier in my career. So I'm really starting to enjoy it now. And obviously, you're always trying to push yourself onto a new level and see if you can get to a new level and help bring the team to a new level as well. If you're improving and everyone else is improving, you're trying to make that step towards, as I said, the latter end of the championship. And that's ultimately our goal as a group. And I'd be really hopeful that will happen in the near future anyways. But yeah, no, you just have to, after the week or two, then when you're disappointed, you're back playing with the club, you're obviously focused on that, but then you turn straight away, and we've Division 1 to be excited for now again, which is great. It's a great motivation going into the new year. So yeah, we look forward to that. Now, unless the management team don't want me back, that's the only way I won't be going back. That's the one take me back.
Yeah, I mean, quick word on St. Paulia's, your club as well, because you had a great year winning the Connacht Intermediate Championship. Like, you know, I suppose county's great, but it's the club where you did the development from, as I said, going back to the age of 5, 6, 7. Like, so to win with your club especially, like, it must be a special feeling.
Yeah, no, that day in Salt Hill. Well, even winning the county title. I suppose the way I look at the county intermediate title is a team wins that every year. You know, not a team, like, different teams win that every year. The senior county title is different because we've only really had 2 or 3 winners over the last 10 years. So that's a bit different. But the intermediate county title, everyone wins it every year. But the Connacht Intermediate, you don't win it every year. And that was really special now over in Salt Hill that day, beating Nave Anna Littermore with the last minute goal. Started well, and we're lucky to win it in the end, the way it worked out. But it was brilliant bunch of lads. I was delighted for the club. Even our homecoming, then we came back to our clubhouse, and you see your small parish there and everyone delighted. Like, that's what it's all about. Like I was lucky enough, I suppose, to experience it with Roscommon winning Connacht titles. But when you win it with your club, it is something different. You know, it's very special. No matter what title it is, if it's a junior, intermediate, or senior, it's a very special moment now, and something I look back on very fondly. Even now, when you mention it there, you'd be smiling away to yourself, just thinking of the memories.
Yeah.
And you know, it was brilliant. Oh, we were delighted now.
Yeah, even regarding the Roscommon intermediate, like we were probably, did you put pressure on yourselves as well? Because you just come down from senior maybe a couple of years ago. I think you lost the semi-final the year before. Like, was that even, were you putting pressure yourselves, saying we need to win this intermediate county title anyways to get back to senior? Because you probably see yourselves as a senior club.
Yeah, of course we would. Yeah, of course we would. I think you have to if you want to make progress. But at that time, yeah, we would have put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Now we wouldn't. Again, I said it already in this recording, is that I'd make no secret about it that we look at ourselves as a senior team, and you would put massive pressure on yourself to win that. Yeah, when you come down, you think it's going to be a case of putting in a big effort and jumping back up. But I tell you what, I'd have a lot of respect for any team from now on, say after winning the intermediate, whoever goes on and wins it each year, because it's a tough championship to win. And that's with the greatest respect to all the teams that are in it. Just very tough games. Teams really want to do well for their clubs. They really want to win that intermediate title. You know, there's a lot of drive in the clubs, and you've young lads coming through in some clubs that are great players. So I do think that Roscommon Intermediate Championship in the next 5 years is going to be very, very tough to win. Like, I don't know who's going to win it, but I can just see the teams that mightn't have been established intermediate teams or teams that would have been favourites to win it. I can see all them getting better, and it's going to make for a really tough championship. It's a tough championship to win. It is very tough, because it can go anywhere in some of those games. So I give a lot of respect for any team that goes on to win it, and even the likes of Oran there, it took them a few years to win it.
Yeah.
And they've done brilliantly in senior, but I can see why it took a few years from our own experience, how difficult it can be.
Yeah, I mean, even playing with your two brothers as well, obviously Kieran's on the senior county team as well. Does that have its positives and negatives that you're kind of, will be more positives to have your brothers on the team, or are you know, is there a bit of arguments going on at home as well after games, or what way do you look at it?
The three of us now will be the type that get on very well. So like, we might argue the odd time in the pitch, but we know it's for the benefit of the team. But once we go home, no, we'd be fine about it. You know, we might speak about a few things like, I thought you should have done this, I thought you should have done that. But that's all about like trying to make us better. But no, there'd be no real arguments. But if we ever turn on each other on the pitch, it means that they're the ones up for the fight here now, and we want to win, you know, which is usually the case anyways all the time. But I'd see it as a plus playing with your brothers. You're on the same wavelength. You think very similar to your family members, and I suppose that's probably what sometimes helps us with the Roscommon team as well. Like, so like you could be playing with lads there, since you're what age with Roscommon, underage, and they just know your game and you know theirs, and it can help with performance. So definitely having a family member in the same team helps. Yeah. And the more you play with people, the better you get to know them, and the better it'll influence your game. So I think that's very important. Yeah, it does. It can only be a benefit, if I put it like that.
Yeah, I'll finish up with a few questions people sent in. I'll go first one. Your best score, or your favorite score even?
Favorite score, I would say maybe the goal against Galway in Salt Hill in 2019. It was my first goal for Roscommon in Championship, and just came at a nice time. Just with the whole year and everything, I just think that goal meant more to me than anything else. Definitely that goal, yeah, I would say. Yeah, probably my favorite score.
Yeah, favorite game?
Let me think. Favorite game? That's one that got me on the spot now. I'd have to be at senior level. I would say probably maybe 2017 Connacht final. Maybe between that and maybe the game against Mayo in Croke Park, that 2017, the game that we drew, just the atmosphere and everything. Yeah, I'd probably go with that. Even though we didn't win, it was one of the greatest games to be involved in, I suppose, of my career with regards to championship games.
It's probably one I asked the whole time with people sending toughest opponent that's marked you.
Sometimes I don't like saying too many in case I end up marking them again, but I probably would say I had some good battles when we played Dublin with Michael Fitzsimons. I always seem to be marking him. He's just a very, very good defender. He's very rangy, he's very tall, he's quick and he's strong. He kind of has everything that's hard for a forward to beat. So and he's good in the air. So I'd probably say Michael Fitzsimons, and obviously his achievements as well speak for themselves. He's always seems to be man marking key players in games as well. Not saying I'm a key player now, but he's always seems to be marking key players. So he's obviously has the respect of that Dublin team who've won multiple All Ireland. So I would say Michael Fitzsimons would have been the best.
I probably know what you're going to say, but someone asked, how do you improve composure and kicking under pressure?
Composure and kicking under pressure. I suppose you think I'm going to say practice.
Yeah,
that is true. But I suppose when you're practicing though, you're not kicking under pressure.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can practice that kicking under pressure and composure. I think that just comes with being in them situations so many times. Of course, when you're practicing your kicking, you get comfortable with your technique, which makes you composed then when you're in a match situation. So definitely, I do think there's a lot to be said for practicing your shooting all the time, whether that's before or after trainings, or on your off days, whatever age you are, or whenever you can practice. Like it sounds like an old cliche, but it's true. You need to get comfortable with your techniques, whether that's free taking or from play, and then your composure will come along with that when you're confident, anyways.
Yeah, and a final one. Who do you think is the best player in Ireland? Like, who would you be looking at outside of obviously Roscommon, that you're looking at the moment that's on top of his game?
I would say, I think the hardest one maybe managed at the moment, I would say, is Connacht. I think he'll have a huge influence on the Dublin team for their quest to win this All Ireland. But look, you have loads of players there. Like you couldn't look beyond like Lee Keegan, Clifford, obviously, Shawnee O'Shea. Like they're fantastic players, and there's loads more I'm leaving out there. But I just think Connacht has a bit of everything that he could have a big say in this year's championship yet now, and these big games coming up for him. But if I was playing against any team, who would I be the most worried about would probably be him. If I had to pick any player in the country, that's kind of the way I would look at it. Yeah, I'd say him.
Brilliant, Diarmuid. Thanks very much for your time. Best of luck with the club season as well towards the end of the year.
That's great. Thanks, Dara. We'll talk to you soon anyways. Thank you.